Hello, darling.
Hello. How are you? Good to see you.
You too, Bubba.
Good to see you,
Hi,
darling.
darling. Must be late. Hi, darling.
Hello, darling.
Hey, baby.
Yeah.
Sitting down.
Well, I love coming here. You were able to honour them, bring our grandchildren, our children, our grandchildren up here.
This is what they call the cenotaph. They honour the men and women who lost their lives in the war and also who served in the wars. Like our granddads there, two of them, George and Mick. They're your great grandfathers.
Cutting of the cake. Woohoo!
Well done, sister. Watego's cheesecake. Watego's recipe.
George and Murray are my grandfathers. Both grandfathers apparently enlisted around about the same time. They were all farmers, they're all labourers, and they were all down around the Tweed. They went and fought for country, whereas other non-Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander servicemen fought for their country. But we're talking as an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people fighting for country, and that was the difference between the two cultures there.
With what Auntie Celia and Uncle Marta are doing at the moment, you know, that's been a real eye-opener for us. Before that, I sort of thought, oh yeah, our uncles and aunts, but getting to know them a bit more, you know, our grandfather a bit more personally, it's like, wow, this is real stuff.
They were brave men to go away and leave their women behind and their families.
To think myself when I was that age, and someone said we had to go to war, it was just so frightening.
There are great stories about service in the First World War. The Watego brothers both joined in April 1916, most probably together, though they were both sent to different battalions. What motivated them? Probably several reasons. Pay, they got six bob a day, 6 shillings. 6 shillings was quite a lot of money at that time when you think the average British soldier was getting 6 shillings a week. So they were quite well paid. The opportunity to send money home to family would probably have been another reason why they joined. The possibility that the average Australian would have thought differently of them when they came back to Australia because they'd have served their country. There would have been probably some patriotism involved, and there would have been, I would think, the knowledge that they were serving country. Once they'd passed the recruiter who'd signed them up, they would have then been given a rail ticket and told to turn up at a depot at a certain time. They'd have been issued a uniform, and then they'd have been taught the basics of soldiering, which was how to fire a rifle, how to march. They would have taught them how to work together in a team. And this is the interesting thing, because the AIF just saw everybody as a soldier. You had to trust each other. So all of a sudden these men would have become part of a team and been inclusive, which was something they probably didn't experience in their civilian lives. They would have then been assigned to a battalion as a reinforcement, and then they would have basically been shipped across to France and Belgium. They would have been called up to move up to the front line to stand to and be ready for a possible attack or to attack. Once they got to the front line, what they would have experienced would have been periods of probably intense horror. They would have actually probably had to leave their trench, cross no man's land, which is in its own quite a horrific experience, because you'd have to remember that the Germans will want to kill them, so they would probably be shelling their front line, shelling them as they went over the top, shelling them and machine gunning them as they tried to cross the wire and no man's land. Then when they tried to get into the German front line, they'd been shelled and machine gunned as well. And then once you got into the front line, if you survived, you would then have the problems of hand-to-hand combat. And I mean, these men would have experienced sheer terror. They would have experienced seeing their mates blown to pieces and torn apart, men going mad. But also there have been a lot of times where they would have been bored, because men don't spend the whole time that they're there in the front line. Behind the lines, they'd either played sport, written home to their families, talked to the local population, maybe got a bit of leave, or like a lot of Australian soldiers, went AWOL and carried on a little bit, which is quite interesting because most members of the AIF at some stage in their life had been in trouble for being AWOL. George gets a gunshot wound to the head actually on the Menin Road, or just before the Battle of Menin Road, and he's invalided back to Australia because of his wound. And his brother Murray, he doesn't actually suffer a physical wound, he suffers from shell shock, and he is sent back to Australia as well. And they both are sent back to Australia on the Balmoral Castle. So they both join up together and they both come back to Australia together, but they both come back as invalids. Returning with their mates in their battalions, they were equals. As soon as they stepped off that ship onto the shores of Australia, the status quo went back to what it was. They were second-rate citizens in their own country, and it didn't matter whether you were wearing a uniform or not, you were still treated as you were before you left.
Grandfather Mick, he got a 99-year lease on a block of land under the lighthouse. It comes down to the beach, little beach, and he had a farm there.
Well, Murray Watego is my dad, and he opened up a farm out at Watego's Beach years ago, the early 30s. And that's where we lived, and we were brought up there. It was very self-sufficient. We grew everything, wonderful fishing all around, and things were so beautiful, you know, you couldn't make any more of it than what it was. It was really a beautiful place.
We didn't have a lot of time with him because we lived in Brisbane and we only come in holidays. He used to take me fishing. He used to take me into Warren Bay on horse and cart, and he used to take his fruit and vegetables to the train, and they used to send it down to Sydney and Lismore.
He was a very hard-working person. He was a lovely musician. He was a lovely singer.
God send you back to me.
And he used to do a lot of entertaining in the town. And my brother Vince was a pianist, was a musician, and my dad was a member of the RSLs and the, you know, different organisations that happened here. He loved the town and put what he could into it, and and people loved him as well. My eldest brother, Vincent, he was killed in El Alamein and took the heart out of the family. I'll never forget it as long as I live, as if it had just happened now, because the reaction from my mum and the rest of the family was just something that you couldn't you couldn't even describe. So his name, it's there too. It might be just a name, but to us, it's our family.
I think anybody who served the country, especially even in their time, they deserve to be recognised. People looked up to them, even the white people, like, you know. And so when grandfather passed away, they named it Watego's Beach. Yeah.
Oh, it's like home to us. You know. We go there and it's special, always special. Yeah, it's just a marvellous place for our kids to take them there and say this is part of your history.
Yeah, I feel really very much connected to Byron Bay, to Watego's Beach, because of the aunties who lived there, my uncle who lived there. We always went down there as children and played and walked up to the lighthouse, and so yeah, it's a belonging. I belong there.
I think our children need to know this is what happened, this is your grandfather, this is your great-grandfather. These are the people who served in the war, so that they can remember, so they can tell their grandchildren too.
I think anybody who served the country, especially even in their time, they deserve to be recognised. I just take my hat off to them.